Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Weber State Esports. We're happy to have you joining us for some pretty high-stakes games. We're on our NECC playoffs matches up against the University of Health Sciences and Pharmacy at St. Louis, or Eutectics.
This is a semifinals game. In this system, there is a losers bracket as well. So this is winners bracket currently. The losers of this game will then go and play in losers finals, and then we'll see who meets up for the final match. But again, a pretty high stakes game that we have here as we're about to go into our draft.
As you mentioned, semifinals are a big deal, right? Of course, there will be a lower semifinals that the loser of this match will go into immediately, starting in 2 weeks, of course. We'll have a week off because of Thanksgiving. But we are jumping straight into draft here. Looks like both teams are ready to go, so we'll have to see how the meta has changed with this more festive patch we're on.
Yeah, a reminder, the patch notes post-Worlds have made some pretty exciting changes with adding a ton of top laners to the jungle, essentially. So it should be pretty interesting to see how the teams adapt, as we haven't seen any professional teams play on the patch, and it's just going to be our college teams figuring it out as we go. You'll notice an Olaf ban. We've got a Yunara and a Zoe already. Pretty good bans for some meta picks, as we see Yunara Kaisa targeting out Sendy from Weber State Esports.
That's pretty common. Weber's strongest point, I would say, that's consistent is their bottom lane. Of course, Weber's got insanely good players in all roles, but ultimately their bottom lane is their rock. It is the always performing, insane plays from Mystiques, followed up with Sendy's constant calm farming and late game carries that really carries Weber to a lot of victories. Of course, you can't ever count out you, notably no Belveth ban yet. We could maybe see it here. No, okay, instead we'll see Mystique's Bard. That's a great ban. They've been on it a ton. Very, very strong pick.
Yeah, Mystique's known for quite a strong roaming support play, so not surprising there to see that ban in against Weber State Esports, as we see Weber State locking in one of the aforementioned changes where Mbessa jungle has been buffed, so this could really be a flex between top lane or jungle.
Yeah, I'll say I'm more incentivized to believe it's jungle purely because this is not Weber State's main style. I have never seen them first pick Mbessa before game one. It just hasn't happened. So to me, this is very much a threat of the flex. Weber State known for playing a bunch of goofy junglers, and you especially has a huge jungle champion pool. So if anyone can figure out these jungle changes fast enough, it's definitely them.
Yeah, and fitting into his playstyle quite well, as we see a Ryze pick from the red side here. Ryze is just a solid laner, a good pick all around. We'll have to see if they try and ban out for mid lanes as these come through, or if Weber State picks a mid. Corki is solid bottom laner here for Weber State. He should be pretty safe into Nidalee and a Ryze, able to space them properly. As we wait for Weber State's third pick, which could be an Orianna. It's an Orianna Mbessa combo. We were just talking about, we don't know if the ball carries when the Mbessa ults, but we're certainly hoping that it does, and if they can get that timing right.
Yeah, because it feels reminiscent of, like, Nocturne Orianna, but there's that weird instant transmission teleportation Mbessa does with the public execution, so I don't know how that'll go. I will say, Orianna Ryze, a classic mid lane matchup, right? Orianna bullies Ryze for most of the early and mid game, but late game coming to side lane, Ryze does so much more work. And Ezreal locked in bottom side for Eutectics. So far, I like both drafts. But I think currently the draft is slightly in favor of Weber, I would say. Nidalee really falls off late game, especially if she can't land spears, and both Corki and Mbessa have great mobility to dodge them.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of a scaling game, it looks like, here for Eutectics. We'll have to see if they can play this properly. Weber State does have a very strong team fight, just naturally with the Orianna versus the Ryze wants to get more side lane picks. And the Nidalee is also more side-oriented, so we'll have to see if they can pull that off in roaming and making plays happen. We see the Aatrox ban from Weber State and a Braum ban from Eutectics. Braum's an interesting ban, perhaps trying to get some counter picks going. And Aatrox also just an excellent ban for new jungle buffs.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Maybe the Mbessa Aatrox matchup is heavily Aatrox favored. I will say, I have seen Aatrox jungle specifically since the new patch. Very, very strong champion. I like the Braum ban and now the Poppy ban as well from Eutectics. Braum seems insane to their composition. Not only can it block most of the damage that that Ezreal wants to offer, but it also is really annoying for the two semi-melee champions on Nidalee and Ryze. Yes, Nidalee spears are good, but if Nidalee eventually has to jump in to a Braum, that sounds miserable.
And we also do know, like we mentioned with the Bard ban coming through, that Mystiques is just a strong roaming support, and of course Poppy Braum known for that. So a good targeted ban from them. As we see the Nautilus coming in for Eutectics, a strong laner, should be able to help protect this Ezreal very well in this lane.
All right, now Weber State going to have to lock in their final two champs here, so the Mbessa flex will have to die. It's got to go either jungle or top lane, so we'll see where it goes. Well, okay, I guess that's one way to keep the flex alive. That's a champion that also got buffed for jungle, so it could go either way.
Yeah, if we see a Scion or an Mbessa jungle, either way, it's novel and it's new and it's kind of fun to see, and we'll have to determine how well it does on this patch and as Weber State tries this out. Weber State looking for their 5th pick here. Most likely picking a support. I don't see Mystiques taking Scion support, and a Rel lock-in does make sense. Rel's pretty good on the roam as well as protecting her laner. So a good pickup. It does pretty all right into a Nautilus as well. So it should be a pretty good skill difference there, or skill check.
And now the final matchup here, top lane looking to be picked in. At least I would assume. I don't think this is a Rise top. It's always possible, and especially with our current patch, I feel like anything's possible. But we'll see. And a Cassante, a safe scaling top laner. As you mentioned earlier in the draft, it seems like a game of scaling for Eutectics.
Yeah, Cassante, a good pick. He can kind of match the Scion scaling, and he's able to fight the Scion late due to his percentage health damage. So overall, just a safe pick regardless of Mbessa or Scion into that lane. So should be a good matchup there. We'll have to see which players of Weber State lock in the Mbessa or the Scion.
Yeah, I'm potentially interested in both. I would think Mbessa because it's more of Yu's style, but I think Scion is probably stronger in jungle now because of the Sunfire Aegis changes. Either way, folks, we are ready to jump into game, so here we go. Very excited to have our first game of our best of 3 for semifinals, essentially, happening right now, and it's Mbessa Jungle.
Mbessa Jungle, and on a Winter Wonderland map. Merry Christmas, everybody. I don't know if this is the best gift we could have received, but it should be exciting. We do see Eutectics going possibly into a 5-man bot lane as all of them are running down. They could just be going for vision, or they do have some very strong starts between the hooks and other utility that they have. We'll have to see how it turns out, as it appears to be a 5-man cheese straight into the bot lane.
Yeah, they probably had a good idea that Weber likes to usually get vision around this bush, but Weber clearly playing around it, saying that they might know what happens as well, hovering around this mid lane lower brush just in case. 5-man committed in the bot side, both a ward from Cassante, a common play from the top laners. Usually you give your own ward because you're playing a hyper tank, you'll be fine. And the mid laner, rather the jungler, takes sweeper early to try and see if Weber got a ward down and if they can catch someone off guard. In the end, it will just be an even play. However, Batal gets a very cheeky ward onto Nidalee's Krugs here. I like this a lot. It's a very unique way to catch vision on the enemy jungler that they won't expect.
Yeah, just in case that Eutectics tries to do some counter sweeping to identify where the Nidalee could be at, or to protect the Nidalee start, it is a good ward there. As we see that the Mbessa is going to start blue and clear down, and the Nidalee is also going to start from a top-down clear. So both junglers could meet into this bottom lane for some 4-minute shenanigans as they finish those clears.
That would be quite exciting. There's already first damage blood taken in the mid lane, but first big fight coming out on bot side. Heal already used from Mystique, saying that we absolutely win this early trade. Let's get as much as we can. And it seems to be that way, but now that Ezreal's Mystic Shot has landed, the cooldown on that is much reduced. So, might not matter though. Looks like a flash forward from Sendy and first blood to Weaver's bot lane already.
Yeah, what a great knowledge show as they just walk into the lane and tell Eutectics that they are just not allowed to be there. Great engage from Mystiques, able to hit all of his combos, not afraid of the enemy, and this is probably why he picked this Rel into the Nautilus.
Yeah, Mystiques is a very good disruptive champion player. I'd love to say engage tanks, but Bard isn't really an engage tank, and they play that well. So we'll just describe it as disruptive engage champions. He's very good at landing really weird stun angles that often lead into kills.
Yeah, whatever he can do, I think, just to be annoying. It very much so sounds like some of our favorite supports in Mickey X or Keria, as we see Mystiques now roaming mid lane with the flash done onto the Rise, the Orianna damage following up. As Mystiques may die under the tower, he does, and the Rise does get away. However, Rise did have to use his flash, and he is at disadvantage here, but we'll have to see if this Nidalee can support. She is floating around. It looks like she's just going to drop a heal for the Rise to help him stabilize the lane.
Ooh, maybe actually going for a gank afterwards as well. No, going for a late invade. I don't know if they win this already, but I suppose Nidalee early game is very strong, so might be better than the Ambessa. No, it looks like they will decide to call it off and go back to their own camps. A good heal from Nidalee being all the support they need in mid lane. But yeah, don't worry, folks, if you're new here and maybe haven't seen Weaver play in a while, that's our regularly scheduled Mystique's play. They'll find another without any issue later, despite the death.
Yeah, I think he plays a little bit of maybe Bowson laws. He's not afraid to use his deaths to try and gain advantages, and he's probably saying that the flash was worth, as he is now into this mid lane against the Nautilus. Ooh, very nice channel against that Nautilus hook, as we do have a 3v2, it looks like, potentially.
You will have to dash in to be able to get on top of the Rise, which they can do very successfully. It looks like maybe a fight over the bottom Scuttle Crab here as multiple supports and junglers here. That being said, they're going to choose to make the play onto the flashless Rise in the mid lane. An incredible call from Weaver, but the amount of CC that the enemy composition has is enough. Eutectics getting a lot and should be able to trade up 2 for 1. Yes, you punish the Rise without the flash, but overall, feats of warfare over to Eutectics.
Yeah, very good job from Eutectics to be able to funnel the damage right onto a single target so that they were able to burst that Orianna down so she didn't have any sustained damage in this fight. As we see now that Mystique's may be caught out again, as his Orianna is here to show up and support, but he is just still continuously fighting, making some fancy feat here as he dodges the Nidalee spears, but Nidalee is quite sticky as she does land that final spear onto Mystique's. 4 kills so far for Eutectics compared to Weaver State's 3.
I mean, I like the idea of the play, but ultimately, Eutectics' early game is absolutely in their jungle support. Nautilus has such insane CC early with his passive, and Nidalee is very strong early, so that's kind of their insurance for the late game to get their composition out there. And so far off to an explosive start, you can see that Porty the Nidalee has 3-0-0 as a scoreline.
Yeah, and a 1k gold lead here for Eutectics in just under 5 minutes is pretty strong, and it's exactly what Nidalee needs. If you've seen Nidalee played in any competitive plays, we see Sendy fighting into this Ezreal. Sendy missing a few of his skill shots as Ezreal's managed to land every Mystic shot here. But Mystique showing up just in time to provide support so that the Ezreal can't continue that trade.
Yeah, skill shots didn't go too well, but Summoner certainly did. Ezreal forced to blow a flash there. Sendy Valkyried forward, was going to get extra W damage on him, which was buffed, I want to say, at the beginning of this year. Corki really got some major changes, and their W is a huge offensive tool now. So despite the fact that Sendy loses the trade, up a bit in experience and in that Summoner spell difference.
Yeah, it's something that I really like to see is when Riot makes you have to make decisions between if you want to be defensive or offensive, and making the Valkyrie an offensive item while slightly nerfing some of his other damage is kind of a fun exchange to make the Corki really have to decide what he has to do in the lane and in these fights.
So far the game quieting down a little bit after the early fights. Meanwhile, maybe a fight here on the top side as both top laners hitting 6, neither having used their ultimate yet, but both having the possibility up with the slow there from Cassante. Topalbo might be able to do a lot.
As we see the Scion getting most of these honey fruit, but the Cassante does have his Chain Vest complete, which is a very strong damage buff as he decides to ult into the Scion. However, Batal just able to ult back out and clear the wave. Choosing to go for gold rather than glory. We'll have to see if he hits the cannon. It looked like he missed the cannon, unfortunately. And this Cassante is still just here to try and put the finishing touches on him. However, it looks like Cassante is and the Scion it may just be able to get out as Batal is just continuing to stay and push his advantages. This is quite the wet noodle fight that we're seeing up here.
Well, we'll have to come back to in a bit. It looks like an insane play bot side came out. A potential at a dive did not end up succeeding for a while, but Eutectics ends up getting the good play as the Arcane Barrage, or Ezreal's ultimate, does not land onto you, but they still have to run quite a ways, especially with Rise, Realm Warping down to the bottom side. A level 6 is a huge deal for the mid laner of Eutectics, and Eutectics really pulling away with this. A 3,000 gold lead nearly already.
Yeah, that was a really good collapse from Eutectics. It seemed like they were going to fall short on the play, but maybe Weaver State overplaying a little bit, trying to pull some straws back in that play in the bot lane.
Meanwhile, none of these top laners have reset yet since the early play we saw. They're still willing to beef it out, just try and smack each other with Grasp of the Undying, as much sustain as they can get. Looks like Batal will not go down yet. With the E miss, though, that's a lot of armor pen, but the W burst is there, the Soul Furnace damage doing so much.
Oh, the W burst from the Scion is always unexpected. It does more damage than you think it will, and it's a good advantage from him. We'll have to see if he can get the wave in a good state with how little mana he has. Luckily, his opposing top laner does not have TP, so he should be able to set this up right. And be able to pull out a good gold lead from this, which is something you never really want to see on a Scion. But also, Cassante being behind isn't too big of a deal as he just scales really well into the late game.
Looks like we've got a lane swap coming out due to the soon spawning grubs. They should spawn in about, I want to say, half a minute here, 8 minutes and a half, maybe 9. But point is, up soon, which the lane swap has been called for. Both teams doing so, though. Weber understanding Ezreal top, so they will call the match. Just especially because we know that Sion now apparently beats Cassante if you dodge every skill shot.
Yeah, and it does look Eutectics loses a little bit of a wave advantage here from the bot lane and the top lane crashing at the same time. But I think the lane swap overall, good call, able to save them from a little bit of pain compared to just the Cassante losing the entire wave top lane. Ezreal was able to pick up some. As we now see Eutectics going onto the grubs, Weber State doesn't look like they're quite in position. Maybe it cut off a little bit from this call. They are a little behind, so I don't know if they quite want to fight the grubs, and it looks like they're just going to opt to concede them.
Yeah, they need to find their own scaling members to get a lot more gold before they can really feel comfortable fighting a 4-0-1 Nidalee with 3 stacks of Darksteel. You really don't want to feed that anymore. It will get snowballed out of hand completely if you let it. The biggest issue right now I feel like Weber has is the bottom side. Despite the fact that we talked about Sendy and Draft being a nice, reliable, safe farmer, has not been able to farm as safely against an Ezreal who is 10 CS up. Meanwhile, top lane is slapping around on the bottom side. Maybe a Cassante ultimate all out going out here, but with Ambessa running down, actually it might be the Cassante that's in danger themselves. Will you be able to land it? An ultimate coming out, they won't get the stun, and all he has to do is hit that all out to immediately cancel the entire play. A great outplay from Cassante, and Eutectics come down on top again.
Yeah, buffering the Ambessa ult is quite the feat, as there's such a short window for it, and especially if you consider the channel time on Cassante, but it was a good play from the top laner of Eutectics here to be able to survive on just 100 HP versus the 2 players from Weber. So Eutectics able just to maintain their lead and not give up anything to Weber State, as Weber does continue to try and make plays around the map.
Well, folks, I think it's safe to say that the invested jungle changes clearly weren't that good. I mean, I definitely seeing jungle clear, right? They're keeping up with a Nidalee, and as you I'm sure all know, a good Nidalee clear is insanely fast. So that part of it is working out, but the rest of it doesn't seem to be doing much. The damage, the setup, it's not quite there.
Yeah, and it might just be some decision-making this game, too, as Weber State has, I think, overplayed in a few spots just a little bit. We'll have to see what they can do to recover in this mid-game. Luckily, the 3,000 gold lead hasn't really increased over the last 5 minutes that they've had it, which is good because that means it minimizes percentage-wise. But it might mean that Eutectics is going to have an item advantage for the next coming objectives.
Yeah, and that biggest problem right now are those objectives, right? Eutectics might not have bloomed the gold lead, but they did get the grubs and the first Drake, which means that that's just that little bit more scaling that they've got in their favor. Meanwhile, on the top side, Nidalee potentially looking to go for a gank on Batau. They have no magic resist, so this Nidalee hurts a lot if they can land their spells. And there's a little bit blocked a lot by the shield, but still a lot of damage coming out. Maybe Batau can land the stun, will not be enough, and the Nidalee spear on a stun target is nice and easy to hit.
Yeah, a great play from Eutectics there to try and bring this Cassante back in a little bit. The Nidalee with the one of the only completed items on the map. The other one being Sion. However, like we mentioned, he didn't have any magic resist. As we see the mid laners fighting, a great flash from the Rise to avoid the Ambessa ult. If he was even a 10th of a second late there, he probably dies, but it was a good movement from him. We see Weber State's bot lane able to maybe get some gold back as Mystiques goes in with his aggressiveness, and they do get a kill onto this Nautilus. A great turnaround play there from Weber State. However, they're being collapsed on from a Nidalee, who does land a fantastic spear. Also followed by a Cassante TP onto Sendy. Sendy, I do believe, should have his Valkyrie ready for this wall, but Nidalee can just chase him if she really wants to. The spear does not land, so she probably won't get the kill on him unless Sendy decides to overstay here.
So the biggest benefit that Weber gets from that play, actually, Sendy is caught out, will have their base canceled, which is pretty rough. That being said, the Nidalee's walking a little bit too far into an Ambessa who does not win that by any means currently. That being said, the biggest win that Weber took in that long play was, as Nidalee actually still stays, we'll get to that in a second. Maybe if the spear hits, no. Just scary Nidalee things going on right now as Zeeks needs to respect it again. So Nidalee with 10 stacks of a Dark Seal, a Lich Bane already completed, and a Nisa Large Rod, but they might have way overstayed here. If they can be punished out, this is a huge amount of gold and a massive shutdown in terms of the itemization as well. This is where Nidalee can really fall off late game if you go for these way too aggressive plays, but it looks like they will just barely escape. Take an interesting route though, still choosing to greed for a bit more. I really respect it. This is how you gotta play Nidalee sometimes, hyper aggressive.
Yeah, and she's able to stall Weber State from getting farm and plates and push around the other parts of the map, as they had to dedicate so many members, and Weber State isn't able to pull anything out of it besides just securing their own jungle camps. We saw Nidalee doing insane damage on Mystiques as she just landed It was like a W and E and an auto attack, and it took half of his health. Crazy damage there. We'll have to see if the Nidalee can continue to transition this into the late game, as she is their main advantage currently.
The overall, though, what I was going to get at eventually was that Weaver got mostly tempo advantages until Nidalee ruined most of it. But Tau did not teleport down to the bottom lane. In fact, it was teleporting top right as the K'Sante made the inverse play. So Tau got a lot of gold there. You can see it in the farm difference, nearly 30 farm ahead in topside, also up a level, nearly 2 if I had to guess, because of how much K'Sante had to move around and roam for plays.
Yeah, very good for the Tau to be able to pick that up. We still would love to see Weaver pull some advantages from somewhere on the map, gain a little bit more tempo, but overall they're hanging on, again, pretty well for how poorly the early game went.
Yep, again, that 3k gold lead functionally the same. A little bit more gold gain. It's about a 400 gold, 300 gold. It keeps fluctuating back and forth as members pick up waves, but the most important thing going on right now is the Drake in a minute, right? This is probably what would determine feats if it goes off, as the Tau maybe biting off a little more than they can chew. K'Sante level 10 now should have a lot of damage, especially with a Frostfire Gauntlet, I believe is the name of the item nowadays.
Yeah, you know, I forget what the name of that is. It's changed so many times. However, it is a strong item on K'Sante. He does cast a lot of spells. He's able to proc it many times, and it, of course, just buffs his damage, considering he scales off of armor gained. We see Eutectics doing a very good job of setting up for this dragon. Usually, if a dragon's coming to spawn, you want to be there a minute ahead of time, and they are there right on time, setting up deep wards and taking control of Weaver State's jungle, playing around their strengths, not being afraid because of the Nidalee's damage and just how much she's able to do for them.
Both top laners have teleport coming up really soon, but not quite soon enough for the spawn of this Drake, as maybe a Nautilus being caught out here, at least taking a chunk of damage before the Drake spawns. That's something that's very nice to have when you are on the back foot. Nautilus hooking in, maybe way too early, forced to use a heal as well, and that's most of their health gone. I think it's really risky as, oh, an incredible engage from Mystique's. Yu goes back to the backline and now has enough damage with a completed item, the Voltaic Cycle Sword, doing so much, and Sendi has enough to be the sustained damage post the burst. An incredible play from Weaver.
Yeah, and 1,000 gold going over to Sendi. It was a great combo. They were able to show off a little bit of their team fighting ability and their prowess. Catching out Eutectics, which is what Eutectics wants to be doing to Weaver, is getting some side picks and catches. But a great play from Weaver State to be able to neutralize that and to put Sendi into the position to carry, as we see this K'Sante carrying the Scion away from his tower, but I do believe Scion should be able to walk away from this. But again, K'Sante has a lot of slows, and he's doing a lot of damage onto the Tau as he flashes in front of the Scion ult, also causing Scion to flash in response so that he can be able to survive. Very good play from K'Sante to try and pull an advantage, and it looks like he'll be able to get some damage on this turret. Normally, K'Sante maybe not able to do a ton of damage, but he does have 3 grubs.
And a Demolish, which helps out a lot with the amount of health that they've built at this point. So that will be first Tau out, and that should, and it will secure feats over to the side of Eutectics. Still, Weaver managed to hold on to it for a lot longer than I expected with how the early game was going. Importantly, despite that long play last fight, no one got the Drake. So Weaver instead chooses to say, hey, let's trade our tempo for a Rift Herald that we think will give us a lot more gold in the long run. It's only the second Drake of the game. A small amount of stats in exchange for being able to pull back the gold deficit is, I think, a worthwhile trade.
Yeah, a good play from Weaver State, and especially, I mean, they still have a lot of reason to fear this Nidalee, so if she's on the bottom side of the map, it's a safe play to play on the top side. Especially where Weaver State didn't quite have a few key ultimates up. So a good play from them. We'll have to see if they can transition this into taking some towers, and if Eutectics can respond and defend.
Top lane is continuing to slap each other around, but might have to be a bit more wary than usual because multiple members of Weaver hovering on the top side, and with how low the tower is, it looks like Yu wants to make the play to drop the Rift Herald, demolish the tower, and put some threat onto K'Sante. I don't know if it'll be enough, especially with the amount of pings that Eutectics is putting out. They know that K'Sante can be in danger, and he can just walk out if necessary.
Yeah, K'Sante probably one of the hardest champions to dive in the game, and we see Eutectics using Hex Gates properly to be able to get a Nautilus there to defend. Weaver State, it looks like they're just going to take the tower and call it a day, as this gold lead has been shrunk to 2,000 gold, with both teams now being around 30k. So overall, good macro from Weaver State to be able to keep the gold advantage from growing, and hopefully bring this lead back down.
It looks like Weaver expected a couple more members of Eutectics to show up mid, so Mystique's and I believe Sendi walked up trying to say, hey, we can make a play in mid, maybe catch someone out, and instead will end up paying with their life. Meanwhile, it looks like someone drove the Rift Herald to mid. Maybe they can get a crash off if they can wait long enough, but I'm pretty sure it has been too short of a time for that to matter. And instead, in the play going down on the bot side is a flash forward from Rise. Tried to be answered with the flash from Goku, but it is not enough. Seeks maybe in a cheeky position, but it should not be able to do anything.
Yeah, Goku trying to dodge the Nidalee Spear, but unfortunately the Rise slow just confirmed it, and he is was just dead. Ezreal having to flash out from the Scion ult. So it does look like Weber State is attempting to dive Eutectics bot lane. Fantastic Mbessa ult catching out this Nautilus, and Weber State may be able to put some pressure on this tier 2. However, Nidalee showing up to say no as you see the damage going on to the Scion. But Weber State wants more, is used diving pretty deep. It looks like he's going to also die to this Nidalee. Now it's Sendy versus the Nidalee as he is going to dive in, looking for the kill, but the Nidalee heal is immense. However, Sendy able just to survive barely. If Nidalee's able to get out from that and Sendy take another tower shot, that plays very dire for Weber, as we do see them jumping onto the Rise here in the bot lane. A great shockwave catching the Rise from the edge, and Mystique's just able to apply CC and dance around as Weber State is, well, I want to say they're catching up, but the gold difference is still 2,000. Plays just being traded back and forth on opposite sides of the map from both teams.
Yeah, ultimately, the plays seem to be more favored for one team or the other, but gold is still traded. Rise dies, but it gets a tier 2 inside lane. That's a lot of gold. Weber, of course, get a tier 1 and get a few kills, but Nidalee also gets 2 back in the long run. So ultimately, it's just a game of ping pong of pressure and gold, mostly with Weber coming out behind, but it doesn't feel like they're that far behind, right? Their gold is still, despite the deficit, they're doing a lot of damage.
Yeah, if we compare items here, we see that both Corki and Ezreal on 2 items, both mid laners on 2 items, both junglers now on 2 items. Similar with the top lane, 2 items, our supports pretty negligible. So both teams in pretty similar straits when it comes to these little bits of gold lead, and we just really have to look for what completed items there are and if it leads to a big advantage for one team or the other. If the Corki can show up to a fight with 3 items compared to Ezreal's 2.5, then he's a little bit more favored in the fight. As we do see Weber State fighting in this river, as Eutectics was trying to set up for another dragon take, but the Nautilus is caught out. We do see the Rel ult traded for the Nautilus's life, and now Weber State might attempt an Otacon.
I think they will be uncontested here. The moment that their support died, Eutectics pinged the top lane, in fact, saying, hey, 700 gold from a tier 2 is far more worthwhile. You can see Rise even realm warping the wave forward to make sure they have the tempo to do so, and maybe could even still look to contest something. Obviously, I don't think they quite have that much time. But still, Eutectics willing to trade map pressure for an Otacon.
Yeah, a good heads-up play from them to try and pull something back from losing another thing, and probably a good idea to not contest the Otacon. Rise did have TP. They could have tried to fight a 4v5. However, I think it would have been futile with Sendy being there.
It means that once again, Eutectics maintains about the same gold lead, which is insane. You can see still about a 2,500, 3,000 gold lead that has been moving up and down a little bit, but not enough. However, the game breaking point should be this upcoming Drake. We've got 22 seconds left before, I believe, the first... I actually can't tell what soul that is. Looks like, oh, it's a Hex Gate, so it will be a Hextech soul. As Nautilus caught out once again, forced to heal, it really feels like Eutectics support kind of dying a bit too much now.
Yeah, and maybe perhaps he's attempting to implement the Bowson Law, but we'll have to see if his death really means a whole lot here. It looks like Weaver's able to get siege a tier 2. The Cassante is TPing in, though. He's able to get the Unstoppable off, as they are going in for a 3v4. Weber State, however, able to just blow up the Ezreal thanks to an Mbessa ult. Cassante might be able to escape, but Mystique's counters with the ultimate. Cassante showing off his durability, but now Nidalee caught out, not very tanky, and is going to die. As Weber State just continues forward, diving again the Cassante, now onto an inhibitor turret as the last 2 members of Eutectics do show up. It's the Nautilus and a Rise. However, it seems that they are not confident in their ability to fight into this death ball of Weber State.
Yeah, it's Weber's fights that have almost always been on top. There were a few early game when the Nidalee was still very strong that she was pulling out, but now the amount of lethality actually on Weber, making a huge difference here. You can see the Voltaic Cyclosword on Mbessa, the first item that you completed, and the upcoming Collector for Corki that Sendy has as well. A lot of burst damage that is catching Eutectics off guard a lot.
Yeah, and I do believe that this is kind of the point in which maybe Mbessa takes the lead against Nidalee, is when they transition between this 2 and 3 item advantage. So that maybe the last fight that Nidalee would have had an advantage in, as we see Weber State catching this Rise off guard. Beautiful layering of CC. I don't know if they're going to get much out of that besides more gold. We do see that the gold lead has swung in favor of Weber State, as they are now about 1,400 gold up on Eutectics, so it's a pretty good gold swing there from Weber State.
Yeah, it feels odd that so many members of Eutectics have died due to lack of vision, which maybe defends Nautilus's plays a little bit more, right? They're trying to go in and get better vision into these bushes so that no one else has to walk in and face check. Because you see what happens right there if someone else does. Rai thinking, oh, surely they haven't stayed this long, I can walk in, and is immediately one-shot post their flash as well, right? They have no safety tool upcoming in the future and no Zonias in sight. So I'm concerned about their safety if this game continues much longer.
Yeah, they'll have to work together as a team. I believe that's what Weber State's been doing a little bit better, is walking around as a team together. As we see a Scion is caught out here in this top lane, as a lot of Eutectics damage is here, but they're just not able to get it quite down. The Nidalee still might be able to solo the Scion. However, Scion is 2 items deep and very far into the game, not quite level 16. It looks like the Nidalee is losing the fight, and Weber State's just going to trade an inhibitor turret on the bot lane. So even if the Scion dies, this is a very good trade, and it looks like he won't even, and they just get the inhibitor.
And as you said, we've reached the point in the game when Italy just doesn't matter as much anymore, as Mystique's looking to channel a Hex Flash in a really great way in a shockwave that finds 2 crucial members of Eutectics. Weber once again showing that team fights are their prowess, and they intend to close out the game with it, but Ezreal not really touched here, doing a lot of work, has the barrier to survive Goku's burst, and now the Rise is allowed to unleash the combo. A public execution on 1 health does not connect, so the play will somewhat fizzle for the side of Weber. They'll have to accept 2 inhibitors and call that good enough.
Yeah, a 3-for-2 trade in favor of Weber State Esports and able to get the inhibitors. I think they could have maybe ended the game there if they hit a couple more skill shots, landed a little bit more damage. So a good job defending from Eutectics. And it looks like they're going to have to wait for either the next Baron or another team fight with a push to be able to end the game.
Yeah, sustained plays for Eutectics are pretty good, right? I mean, you can see that this Rise has a lot of damage with Death Cap and also a lot of sustain with Rout of Ages and 1 Chemtech Drake. It's not much, right? But it's a small amount of heal and shield power that's affecting Nidalee's Eve, Cassante's Unending Despair, Rise's most of their kit, but especially the Rout of Ages. So it's pretty useful. You can see that if Ezreal is allowed to dodge, he does so much work.
Yeah, and we saw, I mean, Eutectics, both of their surviving members had, what, 100, 200 HP left there, so definitely some of those small numbers could be the difference that allows them to survive. So we see Weber State starting the Baron. However, it appears Eutectics' team is here better than they are. No, it looks like Weber State just has 2 members running interference between the Scion and Mystiques, as Mystiques is behind enemy lines. But it does appear Eutectics is aware of the fight, as we see the Rel ulti as Weber State jumps the wall and they're ready to tango, taking down the Nautilus and then getting the Ambessa ult onto Eutectics jungler here. As Weber State just continuing to scrap while taking the Baron. In the end, they get the Baron and they're able to secure so many members of Eutectics. A 2-for-1 trade plus a Baron, and Weber State's just still looking to move forward as they catch the Ezreal off guard with the Corki flank. Weber State just swarming the enemy here and able to take so many advantages.
And Rise was in the side lane that whole time, right? Trying to do a side lane pressure. They will get an inhibitor, maybe? I'm actually not quite sure if that's what they got there, but looks like the game will end up ending right there, folks. I'm assuming we've got a little bit of a freeze frame here because there was probably some sort of surrender right about now. I don't know if that's it or just a new replay bug with the new map and everything. Either way, we can try and see if the game comes back shortly. Hopefully it does, but this wasn't a pause bug, so my guess is Weber clearly ended here with 4 or 5 members incoming.
Yeah, with 4 members and a Baron buff, it should be a pretty easy end here. Unfortunate to not see like the Rise try and TP into the team fight, or I'm wondering what Eutectics was going for there. I think Weber State was just able to scrap enough to be able to put an end to that game. Either way, we see Weber going up 1-0 into this best of 3 against Eutectics, and we'll see you guys shortly here in a few minutes for game number 2.
Welcome back, everybody, to Game 2 of our NECC semifinals, essentially. We've got some exciting games here, especially if you saw the last one. I'm really pumped for our Game 2.
Yeah, it should be an exciting game. Lots of key champions picked out. As we remember, this is a fearless draft tournament. So any champion that was picked in Game 1 cannot be picked for Game 2. We do have the fearless champions laid out there on the bottom as we are resetting our draft. Just give us 1 second here, technical difficulties. But yeah, so reminders, the champions cannot be played. However, the bans are reset. So just 10 champions out. So you may see some similar bans if there are some mains that we're watching out for, or if we need to adjust as needed.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited to see how the second draft goes. We saw I would say some goofy picks in the first game. But that means some very strong normal picks still up and around for both teams here. Very excited to see how this goes. As it looks like we should be good to head into draft now here with some potential fixed issues now. Thank you for waiting with us, folks. And here we go.
And as a reminder, Weber State and Eutectics swapping sides. So Eutectics now on the blue side, so they should get first pick here, prioritizing that with their bans. As we do see a Yunara ban first, again, another Sendy classic. Yunara is just a good ban here from Eutectics.
Yeah, my guess is that probably a lot of the bans won't change. They might change order, or maybe 1 or 2 will change, but it's Fearless, folks. That's the one downside of Fearless. Get comfortable with the bans in a series.
And picturing here probably that Eutectics has a Zoe main on their team, hence the ban. Another Bard ban against Mystiques, taking away his roaming supports if they can. Olaf followed up by Weber State. Again, just a strong pick, able to get through a lot of CC and disrupt some team fights and also take some side lane pressure. Kaisa followed up from Eutectics, again, trying to keep Sendy off of his favorite hyper carries as we see Weber State respond with a Smolder ban.
Smolder, interesting. It's, I think, the first switch up, but I think it's a very strong early pick, especially with some of the AD carry changes that were shipped out this patch. Smolder is a very, very good blind who scales better than most champions now.
As we see Eutectics lock in the Wukong. Wukong, if you watched Worlds recently, a very strong first pick. He's got great team fight. He's a little bit weak pre-6. His clear's a little slow. He doesn't have necessarily the most fighting prowess, but overall a good solid first pick. As we see Weber State locking in a wombo combo here between the Zyra and Misfortune.
I like to see this. Zyra tends to be Weber's answer into Wukong a lot. It's the jungler they like the most. This could theoretically be mid. I think we've seen Goku play it once or twice before, but I would doubt it. This is much more of a U pick, especially, again, with that Misfortune, right? You want that jungler to be able to roam around with the Misfortune, land the wombo like you were talking about.
We have seen Zyra played mid or jungle, and then we wouldn't be surprised if Mystiques even played at support. We do see a very solid bottom lane locked in here for Eutectics, though, as they do have Ashe and Braum. And Weber State responding with their own support in Nico. So we know Zyra is most likely not going into the bottom lane, as Nico could be played mid, but most likely a Mystique's pick here.
Yeah, unfortunately, Nico hasn't been played mid since 2023 when it was a big Faker pick. I know Faker was one of the people that popularized it a lot. And then Riot tapped it down because anytime the T1 plays something a bit too much, it has to be nerfed. Jace banned here. I doubt that's a Jace jungle ban, folks. I'm really convinced it's not. But keep in mind, one of the other champions that randomly got jungle modifiers this patch.
As we do see Weber State responding with an Aatrox, perhaps worried about that top lane Aatrox, as Wukong not going to be played in the top lane. So Weber State locking out that Aatrox, and then Eutectics responding with the Yone. Again, Goku here really loves playing these aggressive mid laners as we see him lock in a Zed. Now, again, as a reminder, Weber State has picked Zed Zyra and they've swapped them. So they've sent Zyra mid, they've sent Zed mid, and they've sent Zyra or Zed into the jungle. So a very strong flex here.
Yeah, my guess is it's probably Zyra jungle and Zed mid. It's more of their style, but like you mentioned, either way is entirely possible, so we'll have to see once we get into the game. I also like the idea of Zed. Clearly, to me, it says that Eutectics hasn't done a full amount of homework. They wanted to take out safe mid lane bans that Weber's played before, but Zed Zyra makes sense. Rumble being picked in here, I like this a lot. We don't see it as much nowadays, but it's still just all reliable.
Yeah, a very strong team fight coming in here from Eutectics. We see them trying to perhaps adjust and adapt to what Weber State likes to play, which is that very team together, team fight style. And Wukong, Ashe, Braum, Rumble able to do that with the LeBlanc secured. Now, I do like this LeBlanc, because LeBlanc is good into either Zyra or Zed. So it's a very safe pick here. She's very good on the side, so they can do a nice, strong 4-1 setup here from Eutectics.
Yeah, and now we've just got Weber's final counter pick on the red side here. A couple different top laners left. I mean, kind of lacking a tank, but their competition doesn't really need one, right? They like this all-in potential. But no, Weber actually, if this is locked in, it is Dr. Mundo last. I like it a lot because while Eutectics' team can do a lot of damage to him, it's hard to kill him.
Very hard to kill Mundo if he scales into late game. We'll have to see if Eutectics can do a good job at keeping this Mundo down. Now, I do believe that the Rumble does a good job into the Mundo early. So if they're able to lock the Mundo down and not allow him to scale and then just carry this team fight into an early win, then they should be pretty settled and not have to worry too much about the Mundo.
All right, folks, we'll have to see if this Mundo can scale and if Weber can land their insane combo team composition, or if UHSP's more slippery, tricky composition with LeBlanc Wukong can pull it off. Because, folks, we're ready to head right into the game. I'm super excited. We're back with the lovely winter map, the cute little train going around. You can probably hear it choo-chooing. And here we go.
Ready for game 2 now. If Weber State does win this game, then it sends Eutectics down to the losers finals, and Weber will continue to the finals. So a lot of stakes into this game. Both teams ready to go out on the map. We'll have to see if they try any cheeky setups here, as we see Eutectics sending 4 members straight into the top side here.
I was going to say no level 1 shenanigans maybe because they didn't all run to the bot side like they did last time, but no, 4 members trying to maybe go for the late invade on you. I think it makes a lot of sense. LeBlanc and Wukong alone can do a lot of work, and Yu is going to be forced to respect it. You can see immediately, though, the answer coming out. Goku walking forward should be able to get a great ward down and see whether or not Wukong stays. Looks like Wukong instead going for a very deep ward of their own and will take the recall, deciding, no, we don't want to go for this insane play.
Yeah, and then also Eutectics showing their Braum Ashe, so they're not sticking around a ton, but Weber State still forced to respect it, as the Zyra is not very tanky in this early game, and she can get blown up quite easily.
I would say watching this topside matchup for Weber State especially, right? This Mundo is their last pick. They're essentially counter. So they put a lot of faith in it, saying, hey, a Winter Wonder Mundo in the Winter Wonderland of the Summoner's Rift currently could be their key to victory and to secure themselves a ticket to finals.
Yeah, very on theme skinning here from this Weber State top laner. Another interesting pick, we see that the Zyra not taking a health potion, which is pretty standard, but Wukong taking the health potion is maybe more abnormal. So he may be looking to fight against a Zyra. Wukong not usually known for his early game fighting prowess, especially into an AP carry. So it may be a defensive potion, but maybe he's looking for an aggressive play in this early game.
And I think it's as you say, right? Wukong needs to be able to fight a Zyra potentially at Scuttle Crab, especially if that Zyra gets there earlier and Wukong has to fight to get in. Just depends on how the game ends up playing out for these next couple minutes. Weber should be behind in a lot of lanes, I would imagine. I mean, you can see Ashe, Braum, bot side. Actually, as I say that, they're being pushed in. Ashe, Braum, usually a very aggressive duo, but I suppose Misfortune and Nico has a lot of really aggressive poke.
Yeah, if they're able to land the poke, then the Misfortune Nico should be able to succeed. However, I do believe it's more difficult for Weber State to land this poke, with the Ashe Braum being a little bit safer, but now that both lanes are level 2, we'll have to see if they're able to stabilize. The Ashe able to pick up a decent amount of this farm, but still behind by about half a wave.
And that can do a lot of favors for Weber for this early game, right? If Misfortune can back and buy a BF sword a lot sooner than Ashe can, or Ashe has to back around at the same time and pick up a shorter amount of gold, the love taps from Misfortune's passive can do a lot of damage. We'll see how it ends up playing out, of course. For now, though, a lot of good vision in Weber's topside jungle. They're really trying to make sure that Yu is marked aggressively because they know Zyra's clear is insanely fast, will outpace the Wukong's guaranteed, which means you need to know where they are at all times so you don't accidentally overpush and perish.
Yeah, and very crucial is we don't want to give the Mundo any advantages and allow Rumble just to be able to hold pressure up and keep him from being able to farm. But it does look like Batao's doing a good job of farming anyways, and perhaps because of the Zyra being on the top side, the Rumble really can't overplay his hand here.
The downside of Zyra's clear being too much, if you respect her push and don't let her do anything, you can very easily get time back because she has to sit around Scuttle Crab and wait. You can see Wukong immediately going for the Scuttle Crab as well, but Weber will know about it. He had to go over a great ward they got due to their aggressive push, so if they respect it carefully, they should be able to deny a gank. A clone in the bush, spotting it out, but it looks like Weber doesn't want to respect it. They know they can do a lot if they can play forward. As a great first blood from Rumble this early game, it clearly going in Eutectics' favor on the top side.
Yeah, and that buys Eutectics a ton of time here. As we also see Goku low, but LeBlanc is LeBlanc perhaps not able to pull anything out of the Zed, as she is looking for it. She's trying to bait him out. Oh, the chain not stopping the recall, as you do see it connects, but there's a little bit of a lag there, maybe you could call it, where Zed is able to back. If she would have stopped that back, it would have been a huge lane advantage. But Weber State's bottom lane just showing a little bit of dominance here. They're able to hold off Eutectics from being able to farm, getting a lot of pressure, forcing this Ashe to try and stay around, as she just can't decide if she wants to be in the lane or not.
Yeah, speaking of stopping backs, Weber's bot side doing so much work. Sendy is insanely far ahead. Not only 11 farm up with a wave that they should be able to crash into tower, but also experience heavily favored for them. I mean, they're up a level and a half at this point, and Misfortune is going to lose another wave.
Yeah, another wave, including a cannon. That's a lot of XP and gold down from Eutectics. Very unfortunate for them. We'll have to see if they can catch up. The Ashe is kind of the win con into a fed Mundo, as she can do a lot of HP damage to him, depending on her build. So hopefully we'll see Eutectics be able to catch back up if they want to really have a good chance in this game. As we see this LeBlanc, again, just bullying the Zed, as the Wukong is there, using the stealth to his advantage, not allowing Goku to react with either his flash or a good W. A good play and a good kill from Eutectics there in the mid lane.
Ooh, immediately Ashe gets back to wave, pushes it in, and immediately presses the recall button. Looks like Eutectics is calling for a lane swap here, if I had to guess. Yep, the teleport from Rumble immediately. They know that Sendy's already committed and pushed all the way down, and Batao has used their teleport and their ghost, so it's not easy for Weber to swap it up here. Potentially, Weber could end up going for a nice Drake play, but with a great equalizer to deny any push that Weber could have gotten, I think they're in a rough situation for a while.
Yeah, it's a great call from Eutectics, as their bot lane wouldn't be able to break this freeze very easily, and probably not without trading their life, especially where the Ashe does not have her flash. But the Rumble able just to break it with the equalizer and then send their bot lane to the top. Great recovery methods, and they should be able to retain a lot of what they need.
And for the first time in a while, we see a team say that they're fine with this, right? Mundo wants to scale and will be able to farm somewhat. Obviously, it's a tough lane, but they can manage it. And Weaver's bot lane is more than happy to push into a Rumble, get a lot of plating, and further their advantage. It doesn't really matter if Ashe gets back into the game if you can accelerate yourself fast enough.
Yeah, from the bot lane abilities of Eutectics, they only have one way to break the Mundo passive against CC, and that is if the Braum passive gets procced. So Mundo not really going to be stopped there in that top lane. But again, a little bit difficult for him to farm, as Weber State is opting to swap this Misfortune back into the top lane. We'll have to see if Eutectics opts to swap back. It looks like the Rumble is recalling, but they're still just sticking around.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a cheeky little Nico trying to go for a gank. Unfortunately, it is a melee minion in the backline, so I guess Mystiques rather, trying to believe that they won't recognize it because it's a winter map, and they kind of don't recognize it, getting a lot of poke out. Maybe Batao is willing to use the ultimate, the huge maximum dosage, and try and go in. It's like they want to play a little bit more defensive here, just try and get some poke out, and now we're in the lane state that we haven't seen in ages, with the top and the support playing, and the bottom laner soloing the enemy top laner.
Yeah, my mistake on seeing the Misfortune on the map and forgetting about Nico being in the game. We have seen this quite a bit, though, where the support will just match where the support is, and the top laner and the AD carry will just play into each other. Misfortune able to hold her own against Rumble, and then this Nico Mundo able to do a decent job into the Ashe Braum. Ashe Braum down quite a bit of XP into a Mundo who's been solo laning, but also Sendy a level down on the Rumble, and Rumble does have some chase down abilities, so able to hold the Misfortune off the wave. As we do see Weber State's trying to make a play here in the top lane. They do have a level 6 Zyra. She is able to flash and root and get the ult onto the Braum, able to get that kill. If the knockup lands on the Ashe, she surely dies as well. However, we do see the Wukong jumping out here onto the Zyra, able to get the clone-empowered Q and the ultimate onto Zyra, securing that kill, as he may be able to kill Mystiques here as well. Mystique's able to get a nice fake out. However, it's not convincing enough. But Mundo with the damage, able to secure that kill. And kind of even trades there from both teams. As we see, oh, Goku dodges the LeBlanc damage with his ult. Not able to quite get enough down to be able to kill her, but a great play from him to be able to just barely survive.
I thought he had died there when he disappeared, only to reappear seconds later on about 2 HP, maybe? Wow, that was insane. A lot of cheeky Weaver plays, ultimately. I mean, I think they come out behind, sure, but still, the fact that they ended up getting as much as they did was a big deal. Unfortunately, it looks like LeBlanc will get the kill with a flash, but I don't think Mystique can get enough movement speed to catch up. Doing as best as they can, but it is not enough. Meanwhile, once again, speaking of not enough, looks like Vital might have been caught out here on the top side. We'll pop the maximum dosage to try and heal out the damage they're taking, but they should go down. There is the arrow after the passive is proc. And do they die? Yes, they do eventually, but a lot of tower shots going through, and there are 2 members of Weber on the top side. Should be a support with that green glow and the Zyra. Another kill over to Mystiques would be a huge deal, with you rather. And Mystique does pick up 1, but with the burn, eventually a shutdown to Zyra.
Yeah, a great answer from Weber State. I feel like Eutectics feeling like they had to stay as the Misfortune ult does come down. Both ults traded, no Rumble ult, no Misfortune ult. However, there is a Wukong behind Sendy. It doesn't appear that he is aware. Again, that stealth sneaking in, and he should have enough damage, but a great flash from Sendy. Actually, he still does have the barrier, and Eutectics recognizing that and not overstaying their welcome to try and dive this AD carry. And it does look like Sendy is respecting it by backing away from this Wukong. Great play from both teams to try and push each other's advantages and staying alive in the bot lane, as well as trading kills in the top lane from Weber State.
Crazy enough, Weber actually pulls out ahead in gold, but we'll have to talk about that in a minute, as it looks like Weber has finally decided and saying, hey, we're going to abandon Sendy, but we're not going to eventually swap them back. We're going to play to get Batao ahead. Another kill to the Mundo. A 2-2-2 scoreline that Jin would be a little heartbroken at, but still an incredible sequence of plays from Weber. They want to get more on the top side.
Yeah, and accelerating this Mundo into the late game is a great play from Weber State, as their other members will scale up naturally. Sendy pushing his luck. He's staying in this bot lane. Wukong does have ult. Rumble no ult, but he is trying to bet that he can stay here, as we see Goku ulting in on to this LeBlanc. Trading about evensies on health, as LeBlanc does have a little bit more utility, perhaps winning out on that trade. Sendy just staying in the bot lane. I'm almost surprised that Eutectics didn't go for a dive there. We do see this Ashe perma-slowing the Mundo down. She may be able to get a kill on him. The ult's flashing with the Braum support, but Mundo just spacing well enough there, as we do see Goku dying to a rogue Wukong in the mid lane. And Mundo coming back and trading a kill onto the Ashe, as Zyra does show up from out of nowhere. Almost getting a kill on the Braum too, with some well-placed crowd control. And Sendy bullying the bot lane. Just action upon action here in this game.
Folks, there is no rest for any player. There's constant fights and everything. Speaking of which, we're still not done. A teleport coming out on the bottom side. Looks like the Rumble will end up going down to Mystique, who finds a great play. LeBlanc goes to the teleport and should pick up a double kill very easily here if they choose to go for it. Should be going out there. Ooh, a great Nico Pop Blossom that forces LeBlanc back. It might have been a kill there, but ultimately what it gets is their safety, as LeBlanc also misses a distortion over the wall.
Yeah, it's a well-placed pink ward from the LeBlanc. That 75 gold definitely saves her life there, as Weber State probably had enough burst to be able to take her down. Crazy plays again. That Nico coming around and getting the root just in time to secure the kill for the Misfortune. I guess the Misfortune didn't get the kill, but secure the kill. Weber State able to get this first blood tower here in the top lane, as Tao is going to be chased down by a Rumble, popping the Ghost. He perhaps shooting for the execute, but I don't believe that Rumble ult ticked on him, so instead he's just going to go and headbutt the tower and execute. A great play from Batao. Nice footwork.
Folks, I'd love to give you super serious analytical takes right now, tell you what the insane macro decisions are going on right now. But ultimately, I think both teams are kind of just saying fight in comms, and it's happening. Everyone's saying, hey, if someone's overextended, teleport behind them. Go for the fight. It's crazy, but I love it. It's a very, very engaging game, as LeBlanc goes for a play there onto Sendy, but Sendy is a bloodthirster, so actually has a lot of sustain. LeBlanc has a hard time cutting through. Will they be in danger and go down? No, they will not. A flash from Mystique's used, but in exchange for an insane amount of tempo and pressure in the bot side.
Yeah, they do have a lot of pressure on this turret. However, Eutectics is rotating a lot of members down here, as the Ashe ult does hit onto Weber State's bot laner, but a well-timed Nico root able to protect well enough, as we see Wukong jumping onto you, able to do a lot of damage and forcing out the Zyra ult. Weber State out a little bit of utility here, as we do see the Zed jumping in, forcing a flash out of the Wukong. Weber State now just set up well for this dragon. A great trade of utility from them to be able to pull this advantage.
You can see Rumble wants to roam down as well, picking up a honey fruit for now, but they really want to come down and fight, maybe help out with the team. But unfortunately, we've reached the point in the game where they have to answer a Mundo, and they can't. A Warmogs completed with a double Giant's Belt is the build, for those of you who don't know. We just fight like a menace on Mundo, walk back for about 10 to 15 seconds, and return at full health.
Yeah, and it should be pretty decent here for this Mundo if he can pull it off. He is playing a little bit safe for now. but able to just sustain and be in these side lanes and be a menace, and especially with the 3 grubs from secured, or that were secured earlier. We'll have to see if this Mundo can take some towers and just put a ton of pressure on.
Yeah, the other thing that Weaver really likes about Zyra, and the reason I love her in the jungle, is the amount of wave clear, and not wave clear, the objective clearing that she has. She does so much damage to these objectives. There's potentially a lot of damage coming out on the top side as well. Tao doesn't want to pop the maximum dosage yet, especially not at full health, so won't get the additional stats from it either. Is Braum maybe in trouble here, but we'll get a good sweeper.
Yeah, it looks like both teams just trying to posture up, see if they can pull any advantages. They do spot out this Wukong, as Wukong opts to ult the Nico. Nico ult forced in response, but the Rumble ult just burning her down. A good response here from Eutectics is they may be trying to go for this top tower. However, LeBlanc getting melted by the Zyra, as Zyra does have a lot of damage. She pulls the full ult and everything. Braum ult in response, but he's not in time to be able to save his mid laner, as now he will die for her sins. But Tao just stalling, getting constant slows onto this jungle from Eutectics. The Misfortune ult not able to do a whole lot of work, as Wukong did have his W up. But great plays as it's just continuing. The Zyra jump over the wall into a root as Rumble tries to flash to pull off the damage, but you just able to dodge it, and a great response from Weber State from Eutectics collapse.
Yeah, Rumble's Abyssal, well, not Abyssal Mask, but the Haunting Guy's percent damage had fallen off at that point, so it wasn't able to do a lot. As a point-blank Astro is a nice stun, but it doesn't last forever, and there's more lifesteal on Sendy by a lot. Wukong trying to go in now and do a lot, but again, the lifesteal and the barrier doing just enough, along with a little bit of damage from you to secure another kill. Meanwhile, on the side lane, Goku still doing an insane amount of work, and Batao gets to stay top, picks up a tier 2. Weaver is running away with the game.
Yeah, they're just pulling these little advantages, these little tiny skirmishes, and playing together as a team, using their utility properly is what Weber State is good at. And unfortunately, Eutectics just, I feel like, inches off from being able to pull these plays off and be able to get advantages that they need.
I am so thrilled with this game. I mean, there's just so many cool points to talk about, and it's chaotic, which is always fun. So, win for both worlds on this wonderful Christmas map here. Weber State has an insane amount of objective control worth mentioning while we have a moment. They've got 3 towers so far to 0 from Eutectics, 3 Void Grubs, obviously, 2 Drakes, the Rift Herald. I mean, other than the kills, this would have been a perfect game. That being said, Weaver might be going down again in the mid lane. They might have pushed a little bit too far to try and get this mid tower, and a great teleport from LeBlanc, and unfortunately a failed flash from Sendy to get over wall won't be enough. A great pop blossom going in though. Sendy survives way longer than they should have, and almost escaped with their life. Will not eventually be able to, and now Batao and the Rift Herald, doesn't matter if they have low health, they might be able to get the Warmog's passive ready to go while they're in there, and they can use the Rift Herald as an engage tool. A great play from Weaver in the end of the day.
Yeah, that was a really nice attempt from Eutectics on the LeBlanc flank, and they were able to kill Sendy, but it just took way too long. I do like them trying to attempt to get something running, but unfortunately just not the look they needed to be able to pull off a comeback. So we see Weber State is 8,000 gold up. Now this is very hard considering that Eutectics team comp is largely team fight based, but also Weber State's team comp is team fight based as well. So it's going to be really hard for them to be able to pull off a team fight v team fight win. And they may need to start looking for picks on these side lanes with the LeBlanc, as we see that Eutectics is going to try and punish Weaver for staying too long. A nice Rumble ult to slow down Mystique's as LeBlanc is able to jump in and get the kill, but she trades her life for it. As we see Braum also dying, the Wukong dying, now the Rumble dying, only a lone Ashe left with a Mundo chasing her down. She dodges the cleaver successfully. We'll have to see if she can continue to get out, as the Mundo will go where he pleases. Missing another cleaver though, she will be able to get out. That cleaver lands, surely she dies as the Misfortune's able to catch up. But either way, a inhibitor at 17 minutes for Weber State.
Mundo almost willing to disrespect the tower there, clearly not afraid. He's reached the point where he is so powerful. These Swifty's Boots to ignore a lot of Ashe slows, and double health stacking items, Warmogs and Heartsteel, creating this feedback loop of health is very, very silly. Might have overstayed a little bit though, but I don't think they really kill him quickly. LeBlanc, lead lane to the chain, they're going to use all their CC to try and get him. The Tau does not have Ghost or the maximum dosage, so this should be a kill picked up, and a pretty big shutdown to whoever gets it.
Yeah, a great shutdown here for the LeBlanc, and will give her more bursts that she needs to be able to try and deal with this Misfortune or Zed or Zyra. She really has a lot of champions that she can be able to try and single out in these fights. But we do see this Mundo is kind of at his breakpoints. With the Heartsteel, he does an insane amount of damage to these squishy members of Eutectics, as you saw him do what 500 damage on a Heartsteel proc against that LeBlanc. It's a very threatening time here for Eutectics. So we see Weber State maybe overstaying once again as Sendy is hit by a Rumble ult and a slow from an Ashe ult. He does die as we see stalling in the mid lane. Perhaps Eutectics able to pick up a few kills. Goku killing the opposing mid laner. In the top lane though, as Zyra does secure this dragon.
I was going to say, I'm worried about Weber getting caught out as the Drake is spawning. but Tao died in the top side. Maybe it would end up being a bad play. But no, Yu uses the ultimate to rush the Drake. The insane wave and objective clear from Zyra once again coming through. Is they're also potentially winning a fight against the Wukong. They do still have the Cyclone though, so they need to be a little careful. But Tao also needs to be a bit respectful. I think disrespecting a bit too much here. I know they've got a lot of damage, but they still need to be careful. There's the maximum dosage pop. But without any anti-healing in sight, maybe Tao can do a lot. And with Goku arriving just in time, but Tao's still alive and will survive through it all. The healing just enough.
Just calling his mid laner over, or maybe, as the Wukong attempts to come in, he does secure the Mundo kill. However, Weber State will be able to kill the Wukong. That is a 4-for-1 from this enemy team here. Maybe LeBlanc able to take a kill back. However, the Zyra does do a lot of damage, and Sendy is just arriving. A great fight from Weber State to take 5-for-1. Mundo just pushing his boundaries, showing how much damage and how much sustainability he has, as he was basically able to solo that Ashe down with 2 of her team members next to her.
And that should hopefully prompt a member of Eutectics to build anti-healing, especially with the Unending Despair now completed. Even more healing and sustain, a little bit more damage. Reminder, folks, that this is still only about 20 minutes in the game. This Otacon just spawned, barely, and Weaver says, hey, wait, we could just go and do this. We've got a Zyra with Leandri's Blackfire Torch and a 12-stack Medjai's.
Yeah, Eutectics not really in the place to be able to defend this Otacon or to try and steal it, and probably good for them just to forfeit it, as it might be a throw from them to try and go for it. We do see Mystique's caught a little bit off guard. This is taking 2 separate teleports from Eutectics here, as he has an excellent flash over the wall, but now we see it. 2 separate ults coming in from Eutectics to be able to secure this kill onto this Nico. Unfortunately, I don't know if it really does a ton. They might be able to get an objective bounty here on this bottom turret, but they don't really have the minions in place for it, as Weber State is kind of gathering around with this Mundo and this Zed.
They just want to stall the backs. You can see on the top side, Weber going for a very aggressive play. The Tao popping the Ghost, and Goku goes in as well. Weber saying, hey, we can actually probably kill a few people if we don't get a lot more. Unfortunately, the stuns will land through now, and the Tao should go down eventually. But still, you can see what they wanted to stall for. Ashe has no arrow in base, so Weber knows they can get another inhibitor, maybe threaten a bit more, but they're going to respect it. LeBlanc will stay on the bot side and get a tower, so a little greedy ultimately from Weber. I don't think they should have necessarily gone for that play. Still, they get a lot from it.
Yeah, maybe not worth it to be able to go for any of the Nexus turrets, as they do respawn nowadays. And for Eutectics, they are able to secure an objective bounty and get a turret back. So able to keep this gold difference to about the 6,000 range, which I think is a little bit shorter than they were before that fight. It was almost nearing 8,000 or 9,000. So a good play from them, a little bit of an overplay from Weber State.
Yeah, I think both Goku and Batao were worth shutdowns. I can't be 100% sure about that. But either way, still, just a little bit too much greed. I would say their strongest member right now is Yu. And Yu was in the top side helping push with Sendy. So just not a great play to pull off. I mean, those are the 2 members that are your wombo combo damage, right? Everyone else is good setup or good frontline. But if you don't have your jungler, Zyra, and your top bottom laner Misfortune with a buffed ultimate this patch, mind you, your damage isn't really there.
Yeah, not quite there, and it does stall a little bit here for Eutectics. There is a dragon spawning here in 90 seconds and a baron in 2 minutes. These are going to be important objectives for them to play around. Unfortunately, it's just to stall the game, as getting the next dragon doesn't do a whole lot for them. But if Weber secures it, it is most definitely going to be almost certainly a nail on the coffin, as an Infernal Soul would be secured.
Yeah, still a minute off though, so you can see Wukong wanting to make plays topside, saying, hey, maybe we can catch out Batao, punish the Mundo for pushing too far, and they might be able to, as Batao's getting a little too cheeky, wants to go for the play onto the Rumble, but unfortunately with Azonia's Hourglass, I don't think they'll be able to get it. But still, a Cyclone exchange means that once again, Weber's making the side lane play, and Batao still isn't dead yet, should be going down any second now, but actually still standing strong, healing so much on maximum dosage, the anti-healing's on the Ashe and is not currently there. They can't keep pushing this, and now we are going for the play that will end the game if they can pull it off. They still haven't gotten any kills, it looks like, but they're pushing for the Nexus, which ultimately what matters. Battao killing LeBlanc in the top side, who rotated up to help fight him, and he's still out healing. The Warmog's also coming into effect in the long-term play there. I believe he walked out long enough to get so much health back and is returning once more again. So that's a triple inhibitor for Weber State, but they're not happy to walk out and wait for Super Minions. They want the game now. They want that finals appearance. Will they be going for it? Remember, Wukong, no Cyclone, so many ultimates used. Can they do it?
As we do see an engage here from Mystiques, he's able to get a 2-man ulti. Mundo healed back up to half as they do secure onto the Braum. However, his life is traded back in. Goku going in for an excellent trade, though, as he is able to execute the Ashe. Now it is only a solo rumble up as Weber State is able to secure the victory. They will be going to finals. Eutectics going down to loser finals. There is a chance that these teams do meet up again. Overall, a very competitive match from both teams, and overall a good game.
Yeah, I was happy to see that series play out. Thank you, UHSP, for joining us, or of course, the full name being University of Health Sciences and Pharmacy at St. Louis, Eutectics. Thanks for fighting us, and we hope to maybe see you again in finals. But who knows? We'll have to see it in 2 weeks, and we'll see you again then. Enjoy your evening.